everyone. Let's just see. This kicks in. Okay. Hello and welcome, everyone. We are at March 30th, 2025, 3 p.m. Eastern Time, where I am at. If you did see my previous notification, I was intending to come on at 2 p.m. I just had something kick in. Welcome. If you're joining me live now, there's a bit of a delay. So welcome. I was just saying that if you did see my previous notification saying I was coming on at 2 p.m., yeah, we had to shift it to 3. As they say, shift happens. And if you found my channel, I'm sure you're feeling energy shifting all over the place. I've been talking to some people who normally don't even really detect if there's a solar eclipse, lunar eclipse, full moon, whatever, even geostorms, whatever's going on, solar flares. And some are saying now, wow, I could not sleep at all last night or, previous nights. Some people are having wild dreams. Lots of weird things are going on, really ongoing. And if you know anything about a spiritual awakening or waking up, that's what we're going to be talking about today a little bit. So we'll see where this goes. I always kind of set something up generally. Some of my little talks, my lives so far have been a little more guided than others. This is one that's going to kind of be, we have like a loose setup here of where things might go, but they also might not go in the direction of my little backdrop and other things around. So we're going to off-road it a bit, which I think is a good thing. First and foremost, the title of this talk or live is, sorry, I'm always mirrored here. It's hard to get used to it. The title of this is just We're Waking Up. So I want to start off talking about waking up literally, but we're also going to be talking about it in the spiritual sense of waking up to a world and a reality you maybe didn't recognize before, something completely departure off of what was the familiar and the known territory. And you maybe feel like you're walking in between two worlds, two realities, kind of that dreamlike dream within a dream. You might wake up and say, what am I in? I see all of these events happening in the outer world around me. Things maybe seem to, start to crumble, or there's shifts in like physical, tangible things happening out in that outer world that are kind of unsettling, or family and friends in your circle start to seem to go away. You don't understand why. It's almost like some just kind of vanish, disintegrate, disappear off your radar, just kind of drop off. You almost have like a mini amnesia, like, wait a minute, where are these friends I talk to all the time? And then you're caught up in some kind of energy shifts, and then you realize, oh, okay, we are really in a spiritual shift, and those people are not meant to come along with me where I'm going on my path. They have a different one. No path is better than the other. It's just different. So a lot of these things might be happening. But before we get into all of that, and I meant to bring my little root wand pointer, sassafras wand, to kind of point all over the place. Pardon me. But what I want to start off with is asking a question. And before I do, this is a live chat. So if anybody out there, you want to hop into live chat, put any message in there. It can be relative to this topic or something completely different. Doesn't matter to me. I'm going to just say my little bit, see where it goes. And if anybody has other topics, you're welcome to throw them in too. And if not, this will be available on replay. So you will find this when you are meant to. Actually, before I ask you the question I was going to ask you, any Lord of the Rings fans out there, or if you enjoyed the movie or the books. Actually, I enjoyed the books, enjoyed the movies too, but really enjoyed the books, especially the second of the 3 in the Lord of the Rings part. I kind of, before I got on, it was, here, I'm just trying to find it. Give me a second. This kind of quote kept playing in my mind when I had to shift the time of this airing from 2 to 3. And let's see. Yeah, so I had to say the quote. Some of you probably already know where I'm going with it. And it's when Gandalf the Grey shows up and he says, to a party, or he's getting ready to prepare for one. He says, a wizard is never late, nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to. And that's a lot what I was feeling today. And so we have the intentions with time, and I will get to the question, I promise, that I was going to start off with. But see, these things kind of wander. I go where I'm led on this. So that quote kept coming up prominently because it fits. It makes sense. It's a part of waking up. And actually, the question I was going to ask, let me just ask the question. I'll get back to Gandalf and the quote. The question is, how do you literally wake up? Okay, and maybe if your day shift, morning shift, obviously you have an alarm set for the morning, or presumably, this whole matrix world, that we're waking up out of and from, would have people, what we all know, that it's been ingrained, drilled into us ad nauseum, 9 to 5, right? Why was that ever a thing? I never agreed with that as a little kid. I was like, who made that rule? I don't agree with it. My body, even as a little one, knew that instinctively, I don't like getting up at night. Why not 12 noon? Why not later? Listen to the body and its rhythm. But obviously that's ingrained in us. So waking up, how do you do it? Do you have a really loud alarm that's like almost like a prison break? Do you have a lighter little chime? Do you have the standard alarm clock ring, the old-fashioned one with the two little metal bells and the little thing, hammer hits it? Do you wake up to music? Do you wake up to atmospheric, like nature sounds? Do you wake up to pop or rock, heavy metal? That really has a profound effect on how your day's going to go. Obviously, I had a roommate once who would play 50s music, 60s music when she took a shower. And it's funny because it never dawned on me in the waking up theme that was a great idea. Why not have a great experience while you're taking a shower and set that mood for the whole day? And she didn't even realize it, but then she was uplifting my mood, because that's also that kind of music, if you haven't listened to it, is very upbeat, right? So anyway, how do you wake up and how does that impact your day? Now, of course, we get into, I'll say one more example. Do you need to blast the volume really loud? If you have, for example, a music based alarm to wake you up to. I also had another roommate at one time who could not get up for anything. The entire building could crumble and she would still be sleeping. And so she had literally like two huge, back in the day, these huge loudspeakers that sit on the floor, probably like 3 feet high, and would blast, the receiver would blast the volume. And even then she wouldn't get up. And so what happened, it was like I would jump to a start and have to go get her up. So anyway, how do you get up? That's how do you wake up, right? Okay, we'll get past that now. So back to the Gandalf quote. So, we have this time ingrained in us. And as a part of the spiritual awakening, we are discovering that time is very elusive. It is a man-made, or, in this 3D matrix world. I don't kind of want to label it matrix, but in this 3D world, this tangible 3D world, we have time and money ingrained in us. And they're both very restrictive. So as you are awakening, you are a being that is conscious, is self-aware, that we are ever creating and expanding. Therefore, things like time and money, especially if you don't seemingly have it, feel very restrictive, feel very oppressive. And if you're what's called a starseed, or pretty much, I think most of us are, if we've come to this planet in this space and time, we'll use that term loosely, are here to be on the earth and bring this awakening awareness, and not teaching anybody it, but just being it, being that light in the room and lighting it up with loving light. That is the purpose of a lot of us here that are starting to discover ourselves and who we are. Let me go back. So I'm going to try to tie a couple of things that don't really want to go together. I have little things literally on my table as props to trigger different things to talk about if they want to come up, just to show you my little method here sometimes. And before I prepare a talk, I'm kind of get a little visual, imagery of, put that on the table over here, put that over there. And I never know if I'm going to be led through this discussion or talk, to pull something up here or here. So I have one thing over here I really want to talk about, but yet the conversation wants to go over here. So I'm going to go over here. And there's something behind me too I hope we can talk about. Actually, let me touch on that first before I come back over here. This is an image by painting a fresco in a ceiling in a villa in the outskirts of Veneto region, if you know it, in Italy. And it's by Giambattista Tiepolo. And there's a little bit of glare. Let me turn the, you can't really, here I'm gonna have to turn the painting. It's a picture of an angel with a trumpet. Okay, let me just see if, there we go. There, you can see the trumpet. So I pulled this too because I was going to talk about a few things related to Tiepolo, because he really painted a lot of frescoes all around northern Italy, so Vicenza, Venice, and those kinds of things, villas and palaces, and even down in Germany in Würzburg. So if anyone knows that. This comes from the actual original of this particular, it's a section of a fresco, just a little excerpt of it, is in a place called Villa Cordellina, if anybody wants to look that up, look and see the source of that. All right, so, but we're going to sidetrack. So this artist also, the reason why I kind of pulled it out, this painting, is because the trumpet reminded me also of another way of waking up. I think, right, the Bible references the trumpets will be blown, when people are supposed to wake up in Revelations, end times, quote unquote, which really are the beginning or dawning of a new beautiful era. So it's the symbol of the trumpet, right? In military, you always see the bugle, dun, 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 waking people up, and that kind of thing. So I kind of pulled that in for that notion of sound waking us up, and also, literally in the morning, but also spiritually. And then also the same artist did a lot of allegories of things and referencing into the Greek gods. So this is just tying in from my previous talk. But anyway, in here, I know it's small. I'll post this on the community page, bigger, picture, clearer picture of it. But we've got Apollo, the sun god, so you can see the sun in the background. So it's just bringing in some of the sun imagery, because what do we say to children? A lot of people, at least in the United States, the little catchphrase is rise and shine, right? So meaning we're going to shine like the sun, at dawn, but also we ourselves are supposed to rise and shine. It's really beautiful. Actually, if you think about it, rise in frequency and shine it out. I think other, cultures say, Australia, other places, at least maybe, I'm guessing it happens there. So anyone correct me if I'm wrong, if you're from that part of the world. But it was made popular in a few movies. I don't know if it's really true, but the little phrase, wakey, wakey, waking up, right? Now, wake itself is interesting because it's used in connection with funeral processions, funerals, things like you're having a wake. But in that sense, it's a celebration. It's a dance. It's celebrating that soul who has transitioned, not celebrating I don't want to be blunt, but the people will be nice and say the suit, but it's like our remains behind. We're not mourning that those are there and the soul is gone. We are in the wake celebrating that life that continues on eternal, that flame that can never be extinguished type of concept, right? Excuse me one more time. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to some other things. So on the spiritual path, I have another question. From that sense of waking up, what was the first thing that woke you up, so to speak? So for some of us, and my personal story of what happened with me, at least part of the journey, is happens in an interview very clearly. If you go under my live bar tab, it's an interview or chat done by, Mila over at Higher Vibrations YouTube channel. And it's also the same, of course, interview, or I keep saying interview, that's old fashioned, talk or discussion is over on her site, her YouTube channel, Higher Vibrations. Go check that out. She talks about ascension symptoms as we talk about waking up, what's happening physically with the body. She's got a great large community over there that talks about these things. So I highly recommend you check that out. It does relate to waking up. So anyway, my personal journey is there. And one of the first talks I did, I think almost a year ago back, well, not quite, back in June in 2024. So if you want to know more about that, it's all in detail there. But what I want to say is, more generally speaking, for some of us, what wakes you up is when your whole world around you seems to just crash and burn. Say that you lost, I don't want to say lost, but your job went away, maybe a marriage, a house, dog transitioned, family members transitioned, key ones. It really is, for some people, is like the floor went out from under you and you just literally like crash on the floor and don't know how to get up. Okay. For others, it might not be so extreme. You might discover things in dream state. You might have ET experiences. You might have contact in the form of, you think you're in a dream state, but you're really astral traveling somewhere. Or you might have an actual experience where your ET family, not in a scary, horrific way, does actually take you somewhere and drops you back off. I mean, all of these things are happening and have happened. Now, there's a lot around the ET subject and UFOs and things like that. A lot of people are waking up to, yes, they exist. And if you're listening to me or finding this video, I'm sure you're one of those that does know they do exist. And even if you don't yet consciously admit it, you know it deep down. the whole drone discussion, like what's a drone, what's a UFO. We're having these discussions now, and there's anything and everything happening in the sky. And I've been documenting this for over 5 years on my channel. If you look at the first 200 plus or minus shows, I document cloak and craft, with a camera, and just doing simple enhancements. It's just taking the original photo, upping or lowering the levels of color saturation, contrast, brightness, things like that. The crafts start to emerge. And then slowly over time, and actually I was seriously led to, I got two words strongly, like kind of like this trumpet in the background, shouting it out, look up. Okay, I got that message strong back in 2018 with a rather traumatic event. And I explained that too in one of several talks over at Higher Vibrations. And I'll link those in the description area below, because I go into detail what did it and why. And it's actually pretty interesting. It might apply to you or someone you know. It might be helpful for you to hear that. But anyway, something, let's just say, rattled my cage, and just to get me into the zone, to seek guidance directly from above and say, what the heck happened? What am I in? What's going on? And I got the words look up. So from that point forward, I started seeing cloak and craft. So I'd like to say that back in 2018, I got activated. So some higher, divine, perhaps a galactic team, my higher self, guardian angelics, whoever does it, who just kind of bing, taps you to wake you up, to have deeper sight, to see deeper. That's what happened to me. So when I started going outside, most people, what do? Maybe you just kind of look up and see some clouds, move on, don't think much of it. Well, for me, I looked up and I'm like, why is there a rigid triangle imprint in the sky? Why can I see machine parts and pieces sticking out? Why is there a perfect, egg shape sitting there, again, cloaked? So with cloud material, some of it I call plasma material, something that's heavier and denser than just water vapor cloud, because it kind of clings to these objects. And then I started seeing not only shapes, but strange lighting and colors. And again, through the enhancements from just a basic camera phone, and you can even just do the enhancements on the phone itself. If you've got one of these standard, modern phones, they've got editing software right in there. So you can just take a picture right now. And I often invite everyone, go outside right now if you can, if it's physically safe for you to go out, like crime-wise or would have been in a bad situation. But if you can go out, depending on what time it is for you in the world, go out, look up. It can be day or night. Take a picture, especially see some kind of clouds. And then just in the phone itself, you go to a little editing tool, and then up or lower, brightness, contrast, color saturation, play around with it. And you'll start to see things emerge in your photo. And this is anywhere in the world at any time. So there's rarely a day or night where I go out and I don't find something in the footage. And again, you may just kind of feel something like, oh, I don't know, but I just feel like taking a picture over here up in the sky, and it doesn't quite make sense to you. Still do it. Follow that. Because sometimes later you go back in, where it's not so bright and glaring, and look at that camera phone or that picture. And then you find, when you just do up or lower the levels a little bit, you find absolutely there's something in there. It'll really, wow you in a good way. So anyway, that's one thing. So some people wake up from that ET galactic component. And again, it could be all of the above, it's just not one thing or the other. And so some people wake up, and actually, I guess I got to go to my props here, not my props, but I printed some pages, and these are all on my YouTube channel. But and actually the print quality isn't quite the best to show this, but it's just a reminder for me to point you in certain directions. So this on the blue side of this image, hopefully you can see it. It didn't print out as clear as I wanted it. It's more clear on the, on my YouTube channel here. But on the blue side here, that's the imprint that I saw, the first one after I was told to look up. And it is a clear, triangle. It's equilateral. There's what I call the plasma material. It like clings to the edges of these objects. So even though I call it like an imprint, because this very first show, I didn't quite know what I was looking at. I came out of a parking lot, and this thing is huge. So on the very first show, this is where you find this image. And I have more context there so you can see how big this thing is, because I show like the parking lot lights and stuff. So this was coming out of a parking lot, and I see this, this this triangle over here. And then I even asked people coming out of the store, do you see that? Like, because it was massive. It was in the eastern horizon, like good viewing. And I'm like, they're like, yeah. And I'm like, do you see that's a triangle, right? And they're like, yeah. And then I'm like, what do you think? And they just walked on. Like it just didn't even compute. So I was left going, all right, well, at least I know other people can see it. It's not just me. But anyway, over here, and I asked a lot of people, so it wasn't just one person. And then here I just was led to get some brownies and put a cutout of triangle and sprinkle some powdered sugar just to illustrate the effect that we got some kind of imprint. Now, at first, on the blue side, I thought this was just maybe, I don't know. I mean, I know it's an object or something. I didn't think it was a portal where it's an opening where something flies through because of the way this cloud or plasma material really clings, like to the edges. So I'm like, that's an object, but how the heck are they cloaking it, right? So that was the very first fascination that really woke me up to, wow, there's a lot going on in the sky. And I will jump back a little before that because I have to say this was like one of the biggest things that woke me up. But just prior to that, I started having questions about the sun because I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. And there you're very consciously aware of the sun at all times because it's all year round. And we really don't have seasons, not much of anyway. Maybe you have some trees, that shed leaves in February or whatever, but that's kind of all you kind of see. It's not like vivid changing fall leaves up in the north and in the States. So anyway, I just was getting aware, I guess around the 2015, 2016, that something changed with the sun. I had even lived very near the ocean, the shore, and every day I'd go out and walk, and I was very conscious of the light quality, the light, what am I going to say, like temperature, how warm or hot it was, what it felt like. So back in that time, the sun was golden, like a yellow and yellowish golden color. It warmed the skin. The skin felt like it was getting, I can only describe it as getting nutrition. It felt healthy. Even if you got burned, like that people joke about the tourists, you're red as a lobster type of thing, you start peeling, it still felt healing. So I moved away from the coast and around 2015, 16 went inland into Miami. And then I just really realized something shifted with the sun, the quality, the color, the way it felt. So it became more white and glaring. It became almost like a microwave burning your skin. And I talked to other friends from other countries who would visit. I didn't say anything about that. And they came back from the beach and they said, I don't know why, but I feel like I got microwaved. It's a very different feel. So that is on one of my first 5 shows. I started documenting. We have an artificial sun, some tech set up in front of our original golden sun, which still exists. But what happens is there's tech that can control, like lamps. And again, if you look at one of my earlier shows, do I have it here? I thought I printed it out. Might not have. It's, no, I don't have it here. But anyway, I think it's The Sun Is Not Alone and Other Objects is the title of it. There's an astrolabe on the cover. But anyway, I show you the lamps. I show the patents pulled to show there's artificial tech. And it's parked. And it's also lens work, like smoke and mirrors. Lens work, if you put Fresnel, I forget, lenses together in a certain way, you can make an object completely disappear. Like I can be sitting here, and if you align 2 lenses a certain way, it makes me look invisible. So those kind of tricks are playing out in the sky. There's a lot of great YouTube channels that have documented that unfortunately were deleted and heavily censored for showing the truth of that. Others still exist here and there. So there's a lot of technology, not just one, again, to kind of set this up. But what I noticed and became hyper aware of, focused of, is this white glare ball, if you will, which is not the original loving kind of feeling coming from the sun. And again, as a youth, I was out in the sun all the time. I was outside more than inside, and as a teenager, it was, fashion to get a tan and all of that. So I'm highly aware of the sun and how it felt coming through, even with your eyes closed. And this sun right now is very different. So tech is kind of parked between, if we're standing, let me do it here, by the plant. If this is surface Earth and we're standing here and we're looking up at the sun, there's like there's object work tech right in front of here. And then the real sun would be, back over here. So this white tech glare ball is controllable. So it can be excuse me, made to glare out really, really big, or it can come down to the size of a pinhole. And as you really observe the sun, I'm about to post this. I meant to do it before I hopped on here. In certain conditions, especially like if a cloud comes over the sun, sometimes you'll see the effect of a perfectly round object in front of the sun. And then behind the cloud is this big brightness, another source of light. So we know there's two things going on. There's tech up there. Is it all artificial? Some of it, yes. Is some of it more organic celestial body? Perhaps. But right now, I'm going to say it's artificial tech in the front, more organic stuff in the back. There's a lot of reasons why that's happening. And actually, I didn't even expect to get into this topic on this show. But hey, we just had what? A partial solar eclipse yesterday, supposedly yesterday. Time again. When is it? It's a little elusive, but okay, let's just say it was yesterday. People could observe it, presumably. And so I actually wanted to do a talk, involving things about the sun and eclipses. And I had that all kind of going in my mind to do yesterday. But something just kept telling me, nope, we're not going to go there about eclipse stuff. But now we are at least going to be talking about the sun, right? So anyway, tech up there if you want to see what I'm talking about. It's in the earlier shows. In those earlier shows, I reference other YouTube channels doing great work about it. So you can just see whose manner of delivery on all of this concept seems to make sense to you. And if it doesn't, that's fine too. I just know that I detected it in my body and looking up at it before I heard that it was even a thing about an artificial sun or tech in front of our sun. I thought those people were kind of like, not nuts, but crazy. Like, what are they talking about? Artificial tech, come on. But then when you see the patent numbers and you see the drawings and the sketches, and that they were actually pulled even back in the 1960s, and probably this was done even back in the late 1800s in some manner, I don't know. But anyway, when you see it in the paper too, after having an initial wait, something feels wrong. Even looking across the grass, especially in South Florida, Miami area, a lot of people have what's called St. Augustine grass. It's a very specific hardy blade. Actually, I reference it on other shows too, but it's fun as a kid. You can even like pick a blade up out of the ground. It has like a crease, like a fold vertically, and you can even like take it in between your two thumbs and blow on it. You make a little gap between your two thumbs, put the blade, line it straight up, blow on it, and it makes like a loud whistle. But anyway, when looking across lawns, this beautiful hardy green, very vibrant, beautiful, can be very beautiful green St. Augustine grass, you could tell when the sun was coming or going, it had a beautiful golden cast, over everything really, driveways, trees, cars, houses. And then with this tech, everything is really white, like the difference of LED to a candle. Okay. Very different types of light. Anyway, I'm going to stop on that topic, but do look at it. So that's another thing that woke people up. And when I noticed that second object in front, like I said, the cloud went in front of the quote unquote sun, and there's another brighter object in front of it. Again, lots of tech or something going on. I remember at that time I first noticed that, like, again, around 2015, 2016, I was going around to different people. Even like I was working with some kids in mini golf, and we're going in, and I saw it, especially if you have sunglasses on. I was like, oh my gosh, look at that thing. And then a guy, just a random guy in the parking lot walking by, he's like, what are you looking at? Because he saw me looking up, I'm taking pictures. And I said, well, look, can you see it? And then I showed him, and sure enough, he saw it. But again, it's like, what do you do with this? It just sounds so outlandish at the time. This was 2015, 2016, when no, big revelations were coming up like they are back to back to back right now, right? Anyway, but he did at least acknowledge and say, yeah, I see it. And then I'm like, hey, do you know what it is? No. And then, and he says, do you know? And I'm like, no, I've got some kind of, working ideas, but, don't know conclusively. But anyway, something to watch, right? So anyway, that's first way I kind of, I guess, technically started waking up to what's going on in our reality out there. My first spiritual awakening, great awakening, hit the floor. What's going on? There's more to this world than just the 3D 9 to 5. There's a whole nother spiritual path, a whole nother way of seeing things. And that happened for me in 2010. And then so at 2015, 2016, like, hey, what's going on with the sun? And then 2018, big alert, big alarm clock, back to the very first question of the show. Hey, what is going on up there? So, because I was told to look up, and then we get into the cloak and craft bit. So I want to just say, let's see. Yeah. And then I started looking at, I'm going to give you, this is a kind of summary. It's called my show channel, Lavender Sky Panther, the covers too. So periodically in the first 200 shows that I did with all sky documentation, I kind of compiled this little, summary of some of the cover highlights. So what started happening is I started seeing all different kinds of crafts. So we go from that first sky imprint to, friends even in Australia showing me weird stuff they're documenting. That's not normal cloud work. Those were cloak and craft. And I go through and analyze that on a show. Down here, this is a rigid cloak and craft, and it's symmetrical. That's the other thing. It's engineered with purpose. You can see the design intent in this thing because I zoomed in and with the basic sketch tools, could draw hard lines, and it's symmetrical. So, there's intelligent design involved. It's a craft, an object. So then I got into weird things. I'll point now over here now, like this thing on this show that's on the cover, Sky and Seek. This was a weird looking little orb, but what's more bizarre about it is you go down here and look, and it looks like the bottom of an octopus tentacle. And then I started seeing things, just weird lights, color signatures that you can't explain with normal light physics with the sun. So it's like bright raspberry popping up right near this ethereal blue white that looks like nothing else beyond it. Then the altitude of these quote unquote clouds were getting lower and lower and lower. That also woke me up a bit, caught my attention. And then, you start to see shapes emerging. And so lots of strange stuff, like all of this was playing in the sky at dawn, daybreak. And, with a little bit of enhancement, I'm like, look at this is symmetrical. And all this stuff was so low in the sky. And what I want to say is with any of this, I never got a fear or scare vibe. It was more like a wonder, looking at it with childlike wonder, like, wow, what is this? And that's how you know if something is friend or foe. Now, what I'm coming into more awareness of, because we keep morphing and changing and growing, right, with our understandings and awarenesses, what I'm coming into is that we hear of really awful, awful ET abductions, like, oh, it was terrible and experiments were done really bad and harmful. Well, I think a lot of that happened in the 40s and probably even earlier, but mainly kind of around that 40s era, with the whole Roswell, reports coming out and all of that. There, I think, was an extremely highly negative group that was doing that kind of stuff. And I think over time, reins have kind of been pulled in on them that they can't do that as much. And eventually that's going to just fade out completely. So it's kind of like a that was then and this is now scenario, however you define now. But now it's more just experiences, and it's not negatives harming. It's your own galactic star family, however you want to define that. You have a team, whether you realize it or not. Most of us, I would think most of us anyway, do. You have a galactic star family, meaning ETs are there, yes. There are cloak and craft there every day, 24/7. I've been documenting that on my channel for 5 years. So they're not there in a sense of harm. It's kind of just watching out after your little family, And for example, if there's been a little one who's been traumatically, physically abused or emotionally, like really bad stuff happening to them in their little life, this galactic family can come in the form of experiences. It's kind of like dreamlike. You don't really realize what happened, but they might actually physically take you, restore your body. They have a lot of technology to help you medically, heal you in many ways. And they might treat you a bit to get you whole and okay again. And then they, put you back. If you've been sleeping in your room, you don't even realize it, because they are looking out for us. And, we have concept of what? Angelic. Who doesn't believe? Well, I don't want to put it that way. A lot of people believe in a guardian angel, one or more, around you, depending on what you're here to do on this planet. You might need a little more team here, here and now. I think a lot of people can say, yeah, I don't know what happened. I should have been hit by that car, but all of a sudden this happened to me. I was a little kid. I was running across the street. I didn't look because I was so excited to see, family. And I just didn't even look left or right or whatever. I just went for it. Right. And all of a sudden I found myself, it's like time completely slowed down. The car is oncoming to me, and I'm locking eyes with this woman who's like in total shock and horror because she's going to hit a little kid. I'm looking at her, but I was calm. And if I could see myself, this is how I felt. I'm like, I just stood there blankly going, I'm such an idiot. It's not her fault. What an idiot and what a waste of a life. Why did I do that? And I remember thinking, wow, that was just so stupid. I'm going out this way. Oh my God. And I remember being like a really wise, person of, ancient wisdoms going, this is just such a stupid way to go, right? Well, right in that moment, all of a sudden, I seriously just teleported, and suddenly I'm on the side of the sidewalk watching the profile of the woman go by. And I felt a presence next to me. So I'm just going to say, for me, that's a guardian angel. And I think a lot of us have these stories, even when you're older in life. I heard of a really great intuitive reader. She's no longer on YouTube, unfortunately. She was wonderful. And she described a similar thing, being, I'm guessing, in her 20s or 30s, maybe 40s, I think 30s. And she also was in a major highway kind of fender bender car accident. She's like, there's no way I should be alive. Suddenly I was just on the side of the road watching it. So maybe that applies to you. Anyway, why I'm bringing it up is, yes, we have a very real team, extensive team of the unseen looking out for us. And that includes ETs, because that's galactic family. We came from somewhere. And if you think about it, and I talk about it a lot, if you're a parent and you look on that, I forget if it's sonogram or ultrasound, whatever it is, that moment you see the little mass of cells is forming, the little baby. And then all of a sudden, there's one key moment where on that technology, because it's electric based, right? And our heart is an electromagnetic center. There's just that one moment where you start to see the flash of light, and that's the heartbeat. Where'd it come from? No one can explain it, nor that moment that it comes in. Well, for me, that's the moment we drop in from source, or you drop in from a star, or you've dropped in from your galactic family. Wherever you're dropping in from, you are that light that now comes and integrates with the physical body. So wherever you come from, I do believe we can drop in here in this 3D, we'll just call it reality, using that loosely, as an energetic being, as light, as loving light. And so whether you come directly from source, God, wherever however you define that, creator of all that is, or we come from maybe somewhere else, we've journeyed along the way, we're still dropping in, as something from above. So why not? Why not have a star family? A lot of the Native American indigenous cultures talk about star people, or some people from the stars, beings coming down, talking with them, having, imparting wisdoms and whatever. Okay, so why not? This is like saying I'm in Miami. I'm just saying, oh, I've got family in India. Yeah, or I have family in, I'm just trying to think of stuff in the Philippines. And so I'm going to go visit them. Okay, why not? We acknowledge we might have family over there. So why not acknowledge, well, okay, same distance, go up. You got family there too. All right, that's enough on that topic. But I want to get into that because for some people, you might be feeling a little startled or confused. Why did I have a ET dream with ETs that felt so real? Because you've got a real family. Okay. Now, of course, there are other entities in the astral realm that might be negative. It absolutely exists. There are other kind of trickster energies that might pretend to look like a benevolent being. So another very important thing of a spiritual practice is, if that happens and something very negative comes into your field, just be sure to telepathically say, who are you, or send love to it, but ask it, name who you are, what are you, who are you? And if there's no answer, that's not going to be a loving being. You should at least get a feeling or something that's reassuring. Anything else is kind of masking, I don't want to tell who they are, because they're hiding something. So just make sure, you love, bless, and protect. That's what I do. I go love, bless, and protect it before I go to sleep. I mentally visualize going through every room where I live, and I say love, blessed, and protected, lifted it up in the highest. You can just say, whoever you pray to, God, or say, Jesus, come in the room, love, be here present. And then you can also imagine, and I even just wave my hand for extra, it feels right energetically, love, blessed, and protected, make it like a dome of protection that only love, anything loving intent comes and goes, nothing else, above, below, and all around kind of thing. Loves, blesses, and protects all of the animals, the trees, all of life here present. And that helps to reduce any kind of negative attacks. Now, there's also psychic attacks. Other people, whether they're consciously throwing you shade is the phrase, right? Or subconsciously. There are those that do both. I've experienced both, and you're not even aware. Somebody just may not. They may be resentful or jealous, or you don't even have to do anything. They just may not like that you're bringing light into the room. Their inner demons, if you will, go if you walk in the room. If you have any kind of oil and water, experiences with others, that could be what's happening. You're not consciously doing anything, but it's what you represent, and it's also what you present. We're present from above, or wherever above is, right? Wherever that spark journeys in from. But we just, bringing that light into the room. If you just even have the intent of being kind, that's enough to do it, to trigger people. And now that we're going through shifting energies, shifting times, those triggers might be surprising and pop up in places you never expect. So I just went to do like a quote unquote daily, routine 3D experience of sending out a package to somebody at the post office. And I keep forgetting we're in these strange spiritual. I do believe there's like a spiritual war, if you will, a little bit of the epic battle of the dark and the light. Not as intense as before, because I think we're shifting out of that, but there's still flashes of it here and there. So I still believe remnants or residuals, or we're living out like the last traces of it. But it'll flare once in a while. So, I go to this post office just to do routine mailing something, and all of a sudden this girl just freaked out, man. I just walked up, kind as always, same post office all the time. Not even no brainer, right? You walk in, just do your daily thing. She just, with me, it was like, whoa, I don't know what happened. And even another girl carrying her same energy, they were friends, that was behind me. And then they tried to kind of like ambush stuff energy. And I spoke up, shined my light even brighter. She tried to take my package even. I took it back from her. I said, she was like trying to cut things out. It was strange. So don't be surprised if you find yourself in these rather odd, situations. I went to my car shaking my head. I'm like, what the heck just happened there? So part of me was like, well, I guess that's a divine timing. That's a very clear message not to send that package out with that person. I knew that. And the worldly thing of time, it was like, oh, but I need to get it out by this specific time. And it was a great lesson to say, hey, there's time of man, there's documents by man. All of those mean nothing. What are you going by? Go by the divine. There's a much bigger picture, and you're divine, not just God or Jesus, but your whole team, angelics and everybody else, your ancestors, people who are looking out for you, even the galactics. It's like, oh, they're kind of putting the brakes on you, like, hey, look at this. And usually it's in such an exaggerated way, like this girl flipping out over a basic transaction, which should have been anyway. And then it's like really to get me to stop and look at that. And then I looked and I realized, okay, this involves another person the package is going to. Maybe they're not meant to get it right now. Maybe there's either that would be harmful, like if they got the contents in some way, or it's even better for them to receive it at the precise exact timing, which will be orchestrated above. Now I'll go to the next time I tried to send it. Next time I go to send the same package, I waited a bit, past my comfort zone, but I'm like, that whole past experience was so bizarre. So I felt into it. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go mail it this day. And I did feel a little bit of self-pressure, like, just by the calendar, I better get it out, right? So I should have listened to my inner self, which just said, maybe not go today. But I pushed ahead. I'm like, nope, I want this off my list. Let's go send it. I go send it. What happens? I walk up. There's a glass door to get into the part where I deal with the people to, put the postage on the thing and take it and send it. As I walk up to this glass door, I see a woman facing me, and she takes the deadbolt and locks it right when I walk up to bar me from coming in. And I'm like, I have to get this out now. I have to do it. And she's just like, sorry, only one person showed up today. They haven't had a break in like 8 hours. And by law, they got to have, or 7, whatever it was, they got to have their half-hour break now. And I'm like, what? And it was like 2 hours before the place was going to be closing. It was so bizarre. That normally never, ever, ever happens. So I'm like, okay, lesson learned again, hard learner. I should have listened to my intuition and not gone that day. And so I'm like, okay, I get the message. And then sure enough, I waited again past my comfort zone. But I'm like, okay, team, God, bigger picture, guys, can I do it now? I really don't even want this physically in my house anymore. And so I didn't get a resistance. So I'm like, okay, let me try it again. And then it went out perfectly. And then what I found out on the backside later is I got feedback from somebody who said, oh my gosh, they said something that let me know as absolute confirmation that yes, it had to be delayed and get there in that precise right timing. And it was that third attempt, right? The third attempt thing and perseverance is also now reminding me in connection of hearing it's raining. It's really kind of pouring outside, which it hasn't forever in a very long time. And actually, whenever I wrap this up, I want to go out and, check out the rain because it's been a very long time for our area to not have rain. But that also reminds me of connection with the rain and the sun and perseverance, and kind of connecting in with one of my earlier lives about the nursery rhymes and songs for kids. And this one reminds me of the Itsy Bitsy Spider, if you know it, right? Hopefully I don't fudge this up because when you're live, there's a little more pressure. But let's say the Itsy Bitsy Spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Up came the sun and dried up all the rain. And the Itsy Bitsy Spider climbed up the spout again. So it's a nice kind of, I guess, tie-in of everything, the elements. So with that one, like I could have just abandoned hope and been like, well, forget this. I'm not sending out the package. No, I kept going, right? Kept going. And things gradually got sunnier and sunnier as I tried to do it. The sun did come out again and everything, worked out harmonious for everyone. All right. So now let's jump back into our what wakes people up or what might have woken you up. And I don't see anyone in the chat. That's fine. If anybody does see this and wants to chime in, feel free of what maybe you started noticing. It doesn't have to be the massive, first awakening you had. It can also just be mini awakenings, like little things that we go, oh, okay, wow, that now I'm aware of ETs and UFOs. Oh, now I'm aware of chemtrails. So for me personally, I was noticing something was off with the sun. Then to the point with the sun that I love usually being out in the sun, working in the yard, going on the beach. But since the 2015-16, when I noticed it's a white glare ball, my body has not even wanted to be out in it much at all, other than just taking some observations, doing some things here and there, but nothing like, oh, just go lay on the beach. I'm like, it feels too wrong. That's just me now. Maybe others of you don't notice it. Maybe some of you do. Just want to bring it up for awareness. So some things also after the sun and after getting, actually, this was between me noticing something wrong off with the sun and getting that direct message to look up in 2018. This happened 4 months after I got the look up message. Okay. So I noticed just driving, I know this neighborhood for like 50 years in Miami. Okay. So over here, I was driving down a kind of a major road and I looked up and I'm like, why do we have a very clear geometry of all this stuff? These trails, they're very low. These are not jet planes. When I was growing up in this area, you look up way high in the sky, you'd see condensation trails or contrails. These were way too low. There's no way with the geometries. That's just like jet planes flying around. Impossible. I know this area for 50 years. So I'm like, what's going on? Now, what is not strange, it was strange enough to see this. And it was actually, I don't have the full view. It was a pentagram. It was a star. So that's also what was strange. But then 45 minutes to an hour later, sorry, I'm on the wrong side, over here, okay, I see it spreading out. It hasn't dissipated. Condensation trails would be poof, you integrated into the atmosphere within a couple minutes. This hung on and spread and made the sky look white and not blue over the course of the next 45 minutes to an hour. Now, this was my first, what? This is chemtrails. And again, at the time, a lot of channels got taken down for pointing this out. Now we're finally at a point of revelations where everybody, not everybody, but you know what I mean, tons of people now are seeing this, and they're seeing tons of non-natural lines, not condensation trails or chemical filled trails in the sky. So that's another way people kind of start to wake up. These are layers. There's like many ways that people are waking up spiritually. So maybe the sun got your attention too, or maybe it's the chemtrails, or maybe it's starting to see objects in the sky and the clouds as I teach and show my first 200 shows. Maybe it's other things. So like Bigfoot, I talk about that on my show too. And actually, I'll probably put the link to a podcast I did, radio, version, talking about my experience with that I had when I was 14 and other experiences over the years. And that knowledge is maybe for you or other people too. you haven't experienced maybe when you're younger, but somehow it got buried in the back of your mind, like, shelved, and you didn't ever really think about it again until now. In the last few years, there's something about these last few years that are activating people to remember their Bigfoot memories if you didn't already. So I had one. It was severe. Like, it wasn't bad. It was just, what do I want to say? Not severe. It was rattling. Like, I mean, I was frightened at the time, not knowing what I was experiencing. But after hearing and discovering what it was, then I'm like, oh, okay, this is what was going on. But in the moment, I had no idea what was going on. And but then it was just such an important event in my life experience. But then only recently it started coming back into my mind, like, wait a minute, that happened. Why did I forget about it? So it's like an intentional amnesia with that experience that happened that was only supposed to reactivate now in the time of revelations. And what I mean is things being revealed. The word discover is discover, uncover. And if you say it differently, it's disc over. Part of that is discs overhead, right? UFOs help discover. They're part of the revelations. Bigfoot's another piece. The Sasquatchy people, I don't like the word Bigfoot actually. So Sasquatch or the Sasquatchy people, they're people, are another component of that. And some of the Native American knowledge, wisdom say that the Sasquatchy people come back again at a time of when there's a psychic disruption to society, and that's where we're at with the whole previous 5 years of the scam perpetrated upon the world and resultant deaths from it lately with the injections. Over this time, it's a massive shift and change in this world to our reality. And so it makes sense that people will have more and more Sasquatch sightings. There's also talk of dogman or werewolf, that type of thing. The UFOs, all of this is coming to the fore now, also because it can no longer be hidden. There is a quote unquote clock running on this thing where the evil entities suppressing all of that knowledge. Agencies, 3-letter agencies, form to make people think they're crazy if they report or talk about these things. Cell phone technology, internet are now, it's a blessing and a curse, but now everybody's got something that they can take even video footage and whatever and share it. So now we know, that knowledge can't be suppressed so easily anymore. Yes, they tried with shutting down a lot of channels and things over the past years, but even that's not going to work anymore, because even if there are no channels, people are still observing now. And actually, people start talking to each other if they want to try to take the internet away and not let us share that way. It's going to backfire. Anyway, that's just rambling around on that one. Not rambling, but moving all over on that one. All right, so getting back to if craft is the thing that's waking you up. Another thing about the chemtrails. So I just want to mention too, this wakes a lot of people up, seeing these in the sky. But there's also what I call camouflage trails, where there's still like a heavier, denser plasma type stuff, but not a condensation trail. But they might be drawn across the sky too as a red herring, like, oh, look at this X. X is a lot of patterns, these things. It might be say, hey, look over here at this X, because over here there's a huge cloak and craft, and whoever sprayed that X doesn't want you to see it. Maybe there's not chemical though in that trail. So I'm just bringing that up. That's just something that came to my inner awareness is, hey, yeah, there's chemtrails harmful. There's several chemicals in there. They rain down on the earth and then hurt the plants and then the air and everything. But there's also some that are just kind of like dummies. They're red herrings and not filled with any harmful things. Physical, it's just a visual technique to smoke and mirror things, quite literally, right? Okay, anyway, I'm looking at the time, I'm going to wrap this up shortly. But other things that started to come up, not just to me, but I had some neighbors that kind of started asking questions because they see me out every day for the past 5 years, taking pictures day and night at all different times. I just go out in my pajamas if it's they're decent pajamas, like a t-shirt and pants, but clearly pajama motifs. I'd go out, like stumble out of bed if like, oh, I got to catch something, and I felt it. I just go out in the street and take pictures. With the whole, I'll call it scamdemic. Yes, I know there were real causes due to engineered illness from that. However, in the bigger picture, it was, massive psyop. But anyway, that aside, The good thing about that, though, is when people did stay inside, not me, I was out there in the street. I could be in my pajamas taking pictures and not worry, although I don't worry about that kind of stuff. But anyway, this is what I started to see. So when some neighbors did happen to see me out in the street and ask questions, I kind of had to downplay a little bit what I was doing. People weren't ready to hear what I had to say, but I would say it in a way that would hopefully get them to look up. Well, later, one of the neighbors said, "Hey, look out right now." And I was somewhere else across, probably a few miles away, driving around. And they said, "Hey, look, do you see that thing in the sky? Look to the west, So then I did. I looked to the west, and the neighbors saw the same thing I did. So this was a very clear, rainbow craft illuminated. And that's not just a cloud being illuminated. That's a separate shape with its own illumination. And so others saw it too. So what was nice is I wasn't totally alone observing all of this like I felt like for several years of the 5 years. But then gradually other people dropped in to help and point these things out too. Then another like dawn, experience, I looked to the west instead of to the east, and this was going on. So I think I forget the name of the title of the show, but I'll put it in there. It's something with play, maybe sky play. But we have these like these lines, and then these little puffs, and they're all like apart, and these are kind of parallel. And it was really low in the sky, and up here, I have I zoomed in, and it is an object. So these things were just happening really low in the sky. And again, I didn't, to the naked eye, I saw it was strange, but it had a feeling and energy of play. It was pretty extraordinary. It was fun. Stood there looking at it. I'm like, what's going on? And then when I could come, inside and do the enhancements and play around with the levels of, like I said, the contrast, saturation, and brightness, those are the only 3 things you need to play with. You'll start seeing some really fun stuff. And then zoom in and repeat the process again of playing with the levels. That's when you start to see more and more detail of these things. But anyway, when I went inside, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these were craft or objects just playing, and I got to see the show, right? And again, there was no negative energy involved with these things. It was very uplifting. It had a lighthearted, feel to it. Now I don't know if I'm going to end on this, but we'll see. Yeah, I think we will. I had a whole nother discussion tied with that Lord of the Rings Gandalf quote about wizard, and the etymology, which I'll just mention, comes from wise person or wise man. Wizard also could be spelled, I think, W-Y-S-A-R-D, from like Old Middle English or something. So it just means a wise person. And then over time, it's been translated to mean like the sorcerer and all this stuff. Before that, you would have had magi, right? Like in the Bible, the 3 magi, or wise men. And it comes from, I think, Magush, if I'm saying that right, from Persia, from Iran, ancient times over there. And then it got translated to magi and magician and people who can work wonders, right? And those were also people tied in with the stars somehow, all of their knowledge. But I'll leave that there if you want to go take that little path, right? And what did they do? The 3 wise men, supposedly, per the text that we are given. It's been severely altered, so I'm just putting it out there, but there's a bit of truth in there. But where anything just feels low vibe, then we know it got severely edited, because the Bible should only have the intent of being of love, the original anyway. But anyway, what do we have in the story? As the story goes, there are 3 wise men coming from the east. They see a star, right? Well, the star, I'm just going to throw it out there, big question mark there. It was really bright. It was very unusual. They knew where to go. I'm just saying, for me, it's not even like a bright star, North Star, Polaris type thing. That is craft or a Merkaba. And we get into a whole nother discussion, on that, but I will leave that alone, because the Merkaba is actually a being that can create a field, like almost like a toroidal field around, and it's like a vehicle that you can travel. So that gets into a whole nother topic. But anyway, it involved the wise men. That was why I started with the Gandalf quote too. But anyway, let's get back to looking at the sky. As I started seeing all of these craft, I was slowly in the sky and documenting them, different types of ones. Then I started seeing more and more detail, where actually pipes were sticking out of some of these things, captured in my first 200 shows. You'll see it. Or like a perfect shield. It's like a perfect disc sitting on a bigger craft. Sky Cruiser, I think, is the name of that show. I don't have a picture of that, but I just did some highlight shows recently to recap my first 200 shows, more condensed. So if you look at that, it's one of the covers. It's black background with like a white looking craft. And in there toward the middle of the show, you will see the actual detail of like a shield or an emblem on a craft. Okay, very clear. Okay, so anyway, then another fascinating thing that got revealed as a part of kind of discovering, right? Having my own disclosure moments. That's another key point. We don't need to look to anybody else to tell us there's UFOs or make that official. We will know within. And like my little journey here, we're being shown directly one-on-one that they're there. So we don't need any outside source telling us or reminding us. But here's some proof, because for whatever reason, over the past 5 years, I've been called to document this diligently, day and night, go out and look. Even if I don't see anything, readily, available to document and share, still go out there every single day. So what became, I'll close on this, I think. What became very fascinating is, again, going by intuition and feel, I was noticing a night sky, and I saw some lightning flashes. And just like the sun felt a little off to me, the lightning flashes were starting to feel really weird. They were lighting up the sky in a very strobe-like fashion, very artificial light fashion. It was also, people are starting to document this all over YouTube, all over the world, where their screens would like go split, and they'd be like bar-like things, like half light, half dark, or this way. It's very strange. And it was not a function of the cameras. It was a function of the light actually happening, because when you would look at the lightning happen, you could also see that effect with the naked eye. It was really bizarre. And if you've been on this planet for any number of time, and I've been here many decades, then you can compare the past to what's going on now. If you're growing up much later, born much later, you don't know the old as a reference. You might just say, what? That's how lightning is. Well, no. When you know the old, from the new, you know a little bit more about, wait a minute, not that, again, one's better than the other, but one is different than the other. And we never experienced this before. What's going on? There's a change, right? That's part of the agenda or mission to take out a lot of people on the planet via these injections, because they were targeting older populations, so that these wisdoms, or not even wisdoms, but observations of people that were here before, would conveniently be taken out of the way, so that, again, the newer, younger generations could be more controllable. Like, oh, there wasn't that before. And if no one's here around to say and attest to, yes, it was, right? You create a different reality, a false reality for the new generations. Just saying. All right, so what was starting to be interesting was I noticed lightning felt weird. It wasn't right. And then in addition, I'll point to this one because it's most visible. I'm looking across, in a suburban area, and these are houses. This is a silhouette of a palm, and there's houses down here below. What happened was I noticed two huge storm systems that just sat there. And they sat there for an hour and a half, which is not normal for Miami. Miami, there's usually a breeze that moves along at least somewhat and carries the clouds one way or the other. These two groups sat there. And again, for knowing the knowledge in the past, it's an impossibility, even though I believe all things are possible. And they are, because I know these weren't real clouds. This was two massive cloaking systems for craft. And there was a battle of some type going on, because one group over here of the clouds would flash lightning, and then over here one would flash back. Then there'd be a flash, and there'd be a flash back, and it was almost like they were communicating. And I want to say battle, because that's what it felt like. And when you look at the show, it's like, I always forget the name of this title, something like backyard nighttime craft battle, something like that. But anyway, I took video footage because something just felt wrong, and I thought, let me just take video, even though it was dark, and let me video, especially when things start to flash, right? So what happened was, like over here, it's kind of dark. So there was the first flash. And then I zoomed in. And again, with this is a bigger flash. So that was at the beginning of a little flash. And then I got a brighter flash and captured it right in that moment. And so I'm going to hold this up. So in that moment, look at this. I was astonished. And on this one, I didn't even up or lower the levels. I think that was just the brightness of the lightning flash. And what I did was I took the video footage and just so slowly dragged across and caught that frame. But look at that. That's like a knife, it looks like a knife with a handle. It looks like a chef's knife with a handle going off the back. Now, the more I zoomed in and looked at it, first of all, it's undeniably an object. That's not a normal cloud. That's not a plane, helicopter, drone, nothing. Look at the size. The thing is massive. So then, I zoomed in a bit. So, down here, the lower picture, you even see it's like, sorry, got to get to it. It's even like sitting on a tuft of cloud, like a little platform of cloud. And that's a light or something reflecting. But anyway, clearly, some type of craft. Actually, I should just move to this one. And in that show, I really show different timestamps, if you will. See how it's sitting like on a cloud of stuff or a rigid platform. I mean, that's an object, and it was heading, into that other cloud. And all through that show, there are weird objects showing up backlit. Like toward the end of that show, even there's and go to the original show, not the highlights show I showed recently, but the original show. Um, you look down toward the end of that show, and there's even like this weird, it looks tentacle-like thing twisting. I truly believe there's sky organisms we don't even know about, like sky kraken type stuff. It's a whole nother topic, right? But anyway, I'm looking at the time, and I don't really see anybody hopping in. So what I'll do is wrap this discussion up with one card, because I was just about to set up and go on, and something said grab this two things, okay? So first of all, let me read, the card that was coming to me. So I was led to bring up a sample that I got recently of this gorgeous stone crystal. I have it on one of my crystal talk shows, and this is the chrysanthemum stone, because the white part it reminds me of a starburst or a sun. That's in the night sky, in the darkness in the galaxy or whatever. That's why I brought it out, and it reminds me of eclipse energy and everything else somehow. But anyway, this is like a burst, and it looks like a chrysanthemum flower, but also can be interpreted to me, as a star or sun on this background, right? And typically it is a black, stone background with these white flashes of deposits or whatever. I invite you to look up how these are formed. I don't have all that, information right now, but look up the chrysanthemum stone. So I did go to this Crystal Grid Oracle book by Nicola McIntosh. And there is one card called Chrysanthemum Stone. She made a little grid, and it's inspiration, okay? And that's how you spell it if you need to see it. Chrysanthemum stone. So to me, too, even her card reminds me of the sunshine, reminds me of eclipse energy, and also just divine, kind of star being energy. And actually, I had a neighbor once, and I told him if I could borrow his little phrase. He's waking up, and what he was trying to get to the term or the phrase star seeds, and he's like, oh yeah, isn't that called like star baby? And so I'd give him credit, but he wants to remain anonymous. But I love it. I said, I've got to use that. That's a great phrase. So you'll hear in this on the spiritual path, you probably already know it, the phrase star seeds, but I like star babies or even star hearts. But anyway, this card, getting back to it, I'll read just a quick little message here. It'll be perfect to close on this. And again, actually the companion book is really nice. It gives a color, illustration. And I'm only going to read the first, and I always do this. It doesn't look it, but it's very dim over here. So if I go to read something, I have to use my little fairy lights. But I'm just going to read probably the first sentence. Let me see if I can read it, because I've been online too much. I get my eyes go a little fuzzy when I'm looking at the screen too long. But anyway, it says, inspiration, the message. It's time to light that spark and reach for the sky. It's time for you to be creative and find that inner child and run with it. And I want to add to, it goes on and on, but that's all I want to read out of here. That's the spirit of this. So it's the time to, when you go into a room, light that room up, man. Light it up with loving intention and kindness. There's a lot of hurt going on in the world ongoing. A lot of people are healing from things. A lot of these energy shifts on the planet right now are forcing a lot of stuff from the past to, come into our present, to look at, maybe to grieve, to feel any other residual pain or lower vibrations of it, and just let it move through the body and let it move out, so that we can get lighter and brighter, and move toward a more beautiful world. And so that heavy baggage, we need to drop it, and we need to process it. So we're still going to have residuals. Even if you think you've done the work on your spiritual journey, you still may be hit with here and there, like, oh, I thought we grieved that or moved through that like decades ago. Little things might still, pop up to be acknowledged. Like, I see you, I honor you, feeling. Let it move through, and now it's time I send you on your way, kind of like a kiss goodbye. Thank you, for the lessons, and have a nice day, right? Move on. But anyway, I think just the spirit of eclipse, I guess I do want to bring that up a bit. it is something that's hidden. It's something that's coming over to hide something. And now those, eclipses, they can bring big, big, massive changes in the life, of course. Like the last big solar eclipse in April, I had to move suddenly. It was, not fun. This one may start bringing, more stuff like that for the next few months, several months, up to maybe 6 months or more. Might start bringing up, things that you go, why do I have to suddenly move? This is weird. These are times that might be calling us to physically move and change on this planet, to kind of be and put us in position for some amazing things to come. Again, there's a much bigger picture than our day to day. And maybe you are this, I've talked on other shows, my crystal talks. We are the crystal. Okay, I'm just picking up selenite for an example. I can't find my little, here's another one, clear quartz. We are the crystal, okay, on this planet. If you're coming in with loving intent and want to see a more loving world coming up as a part of this whole awakening, that's the process too, that we want to see a more beautiful world and get back to that. And so, and as a collective consciousness, that's happening. We are wanting to see a better way. No more oppression, no more harm to people. And, but anyway, being this crystal is, can be an, not allegory, what I want to say, representation of us ourselves. So if you're suddenly called to go somewhere and you don't understand it, or travel somewhere, you didn't plan on it, or relocate, just remember there's a much bigger picture. And we come in here as those star babies, as those star hearts, as those children of loving light here on this planet. And so it may be that your spark, your star, your shining light, your lighthouse energy, your, coming in and lighting up the universe just with a smile or a hug or a kind word. You may be called to go somewhere on the planet, to be there, to be that presence, that present spark light, to bring that energy to a certain region, even if it's just for a day, or if you need to relocate more permanently. So remember, it's not like especially if it's, you don't want to move, because I actually experienced that. But it's just trust in something bigger that's got your back, that is guiding you there. Why? It's happening for you, not to you. That famous phrase, absolutely happening for you, not to you. And just trust. There's something bigger right now. And that something bigger, that's a loving, loving light force that has our back. If you believe in kindness and love and bringing that energy into the world and amplifying it, that has your back now. And we're going to be feeling that stronger and stronger, ongoing and already starting, but even more incrementally as we move along. So remember that you're probably going to be called to have an overwhelming sense of just trust. And where before it has been hard to trust in the unseen, you might be put in situations where you have like no other choice, so to speak. Like you have nothing to do left but to trust. And that's exactly the space where all the magic, getting back to the magi magic word, that's where all the magic happens. And we are that source. We are, you want to say, the sorcerer. That was actually in a book by Neil Donald Walsh, the Conversations with God, wordplay, that if you are a sorcerer with a word of magic, it's just saying we are a source. We've got that God spark within us. We've got that creative power to use it, and imagination, creative imagination, and making things come to life through our imagination and through our intuition, through our guidance. We have that. We are master creators ourselves. And so we are source. We are those little star babies, those little baby lights are within us to create. And we're given full license to do that, as long as it's not harming others, then that's another story. But anyway, be that light. If there's any darkness, like the eclipse shows us that, okay, it's temporarily there and then it's gone. The sun will shine again. We rise and shine again. There's nothing that will permanently ever extinguish our light. Okay. And that's it. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Anyway, I guess I'll just say until next time. If I didn't say it at the beginning, I'm Varleigh with Lavender Sky Panther. And as I sign everything off with, tremendous peace and love to you, especially in times that might seem a little uncertain. It's going to be fine. Just show up each day. Know that something bigger has your back, and you can bring it to, and just blast that light out around wherever you go. Light up the room with love. All right. Tremendous peace and love to all. Take care.